In this demonstration, we'll be learning how to use Shape Tweens. Essentially, Shape Tweens is a transition between two keyframes as applied to a raw vector shape. So I'm going to demonstrate that right now, and we'll just create it on one layer here. I'm going to start with the first keyframe and draw a very simple shape in there. I'm just going to pick a bright green for the fill, and I think I'll make the stroke color black here. Alright, so I'll use my pen tool, and as I said, I'll just create sort of a random shape, kind of fast. And maybe some straight lines in here, and then some more curves, and we'll close that off. And I'll use my bucket tool to fill that with that fill color of green. There we go. So there's our first shape. So to do a shape tween, it needs a transition across frames. So I need to apply a second keyframe into the timeline, and I'm looking at 24 frames a second, so I'm going to go to the 3-second mark here at 72. Click on that frame and just hit F7 on my keyboard. And that creates what's called a blank keyframe. So there's nothing in there. The frame before is still holding that initial graphic that's in the first keyframe, but frame 72 is empty. So what I want to put here is just another shape. And I think just in this case, I'm going to use the Polystar tool over here. It's nested with these. And if I go to my properties down here, I can see that I want to make sure it's set to star, not polygon. And I'll leave the default of 5 sides, but I'm going to change the colors. So I'll go to my fill color, and let's say we'll fill it with red, and maybe I'll make the stroke color a very rich blue. There we go. And I'll just click on the screen and drag and generate a star. I'll see about that size, and I'm just going to move it a bit. So I'll go to my selection tool, double click to select everything, and then I can click away to deselect. So now I have keyframe 1 in frame 1 and keyframe 2 in frame 72. So I want to have a smooth transition between these two items over the space of 3 seconds. So I'll just go back to frame 1 here, and it's a simple right click on the keyframe and just choose Create Shape Tween. And again, I'll just remind you, this will only work between two vector shapes. It won't work for a movie clip on the frame. So you can see what it did here. It filled it in with this rust color with a long line with an arrowhead. And if I scrub the playhead, you'll see how it animated. So I can do that. Let me just shrink the view of the timeline here. I could go in and do another keyframe over here, but this time I'm actually going to just put a keyframe and not a blank keyframe. So let me just move over here, and I'll go to the 6-second mark here. Click that frame. So I'm going to hit F6 to create a new keyframe, which means it will retain the graphics in the previous keyframe, from the previous keyframe. And here we are, F6. So what I'll do with this is I guess I'll change its location and maybe slightly change the shape. So I'll put it up here. I'll resize it with the free transform tool. And if I want to constrain it, I would have to hold my shift key. But you know what? I'm not going to. I'm going to squish it like that. Okay, and I'll just drag it up here. So it will go from this to this. So all I have to do again is to right click on this keyframe right here and add a shape tween. And watch what happens when I scrub along here. There we go. If I wanted to change the color in this keyframe, I can still do it after the fact. I'll go to the keyframe, select the fill color, and I'll go to my properties over here, and let's say we'll change it to a bright green. So it's going to go from the green to the red when I go backwards. And over here it goes from the green to the red as well. So maybe I'll make that last keyframe a different color other than red. Other than green, rather. So we'll just choose maybe a purple. Something like that. There we go. So that's the long and short story, I guess, of creating the shape tweens. But there is one more level of control that we can apply to these, so I'm going to share that as well. And it's a feature called Shape Hints. Now just watch when I scrub from here. I'm going to go kind of slow to here. It sort of followed a certain, pattern, if you will, in how it transitioned. I'm going to show you what Shape Hints does and explain it as I apply it. So it can be applied by going to Modify, Shape, Add Shape Hint. You do need to be on the keyframe to make this work. So I'm on the first keyframe and I'm going to add my first shape hint. It appears as a little red dot in the middle of the shape, and you need to drag that to the edge and it will snap. So I'm just going to put this over here and put the A up here. And I'm going to ignore my phone. So I'm going to add, excuse me, I'm going to add about 4 or 5 of these shape hints. So modify, shape, add shape hint. And you can see here, well, this is on a Mac, so it looks like it's Command-Shift-H. But I'm going to do them with the menu. So I'm just going to put these sort of around the edges. Add shape hint. I'll put it at this sort of corner, if you will. And I'll put one down here and one over here. So 2 more. Add shape hint. One down here. And finally the 5th one, add shape hint right here. Okay, so to make this work, I need to go to the next keyframe and assign any place along the line for these 5 shape hints. And they are listed by alphabet, so A, B, C, D, and E. So let's go to the next keyframe, and you'll see them all piled in the middle. And it starts with the last one, E. So if I put the E down here, it means that wherever the E is over here, that point will find its way to become that point in the transition. So I'm just going to go conventionally around here. D, C, B, and A. So each of these peaks will correlate with those 5 locations on the line. So A was the left point on the star, I believe. So that part up from here should transition to here. So let's just do a slow scrub here and kind of see if that's what it does. And I can see that it is doing that. So if I go to the other points, I can see that B should be the top of the peak. So I'll just drag that again there. And that's what's happening. So let's say I mix these up. I'm going to put A down here. And let's put D up at the top here. And now I'll scrub again and see how that changed. And it's radically different. It's doing all this twisty bendy stuff that it didn't do before. So that just shows you again how you can gain further control by using these things called shape hints. All right, and you can mix and match and locate them to your desire. So that really is the full story now on how to create shape tweens. Just remember, it's a transition between 2 keyframes, and it has to transition with only vector graphics as content in each keyframe. Okay, so if I drag across again, you can see I got 3 keyframes to create all of this. And that's the short story on Shape Tweens.